Our first guest speaker, who is Josh Green. Josh is from London Museum, and he's going to tell us about Beyond Brand, infusing a city's creativity into London Museum. Please give him a warm welcome.
Thank you, thank you. Hello everyone. Just making sure my machine's working. My name's Josh. I'm Head of Design for London Museum. Thanks for coming today. 10 a.m. and so many people, that's so good to see. And I'm going to take you on a bit of a journey around how we're bringing design into the forefront of London Museum. As a bit of a disclaimer, this session will focus more on the how and the why, more than the what. There are so many exciting and incredible projects that I'm involved with at the Smithfield site of the museum, but we do want to keep as much of it under wraps and to not spoil any surprises. So many of the examples today are focused on areas that just aren't, for want of a better word, embargoed, and I can talk about. I can see in the corner of my eye the head of comms over there and marketing, and I want to make sure, I'm a known blabbermouth, so I've got my handy notes to keep me on track. So, and another key point that I want to set out is also that before I started, the museum and the project itself just didn't have a head of design for well over 10 years before I started. So some of these elements that might seem relatively routine just didn't have a precedent at the museum. So all of this has been both a real opportunity, but quite a daunting task at the same time. So I wanted to take this time to give some insight into the creative process and the strategic design thinking behind London Museum, and how, through the lens of design, we've looked to develop 4 key pillars: our brand architecture, our visual identity, our art direction, and our museum-wide design principles, and use them as an opportunity to engage with Londoners, and as an opportunity to position ourselves as a creative powerhouse for the city. So, some of you might know, London Museum is embarking on a monumental journey. We're relocating to a new home in Smithfield, creating a new museum within a stunning set of historic market buildings, due to open next year in 2026. This isn't just a move, it's one of the largest and most significant cultural development projects currently underway in Europe. It represents a major investment in London's heritage and its future. The scale is immense, and it's a pivotal moment for our institution. Above and beyond, though, it's a once-in-a-generation opportunity to reimagine what a city museum looks like in the 21st century. Our ambition is nothing less than to become the greatest museum for a city in the world. The new site will encompass various spaces, including the soaring ironwork of our Victorian General Market and its vaulted, incredible basements, to the utilitarian robustness of the 1960s dome of the poultry market. These will house our permanent, historic and contemporary galleries, state-of-the-art flexible exhibition spaces, our comprehensive learning centre, and our modern collection stores. All of our content will be entirely refreshed and presented in new ways to resonate with a much broader and diverse range of audiences. The new museum itself is an incredible project, over 10 years in the making, and a colossal shift for us as an institution. But with a project of this magnitude, spanning years, involving countless elements, and hundreds, and I mean hundreds of people, comes a critical challenge. How do we ensure every aspect of it feels connected? How do we make sure that the architectural vision, the physical construction of the buildings, the marketing campaigns, our digital presence, the visitor experience, the journey to the museum, the journey into the museum, how do we ensure that all of these elements are, it's such a tacky phrase, but swimming in the same direction? Achieving cohesion across such a vast project requires a really rigorous design framework. It's not just about visual consistency, it's about ensuring that every single element, from the wayfinding to the exhibition graphics, they reinforce the museum's core narrative. This involves close collaborations with architects, exhibition designers, graphic designers, digital developers, our retail teams, our commercial teams. It takes a village to pull this together. So my role as head of design for the museum and the project is to ensure that this question is answered as well as possible. That through all of these streams, that there's a visual consistency and cohesion, seeing the wood from the trees, as it were. My role covers a huge, wide range of design disciplines, managing the relationships with our design teams and guiding the process of design across our communications and media, our wider brand collateral, the base build architectural project, the interior fit-outs of our spaces, to the exhibitions and galleries, both temporary and permanent, including all of the commissions therein, and even over to our retail and dining spaces, our office spaces, as well as our digital offer, our retail range, and even down to the uniforms that we wear. They're all a part of that remit. So for me, my background is I'm a qualified architect by training, and I came to the museum from a completely different sector. I came from fashion house Burberry. So coming to the museum, I liken the project to the experience of a major global fashion house launching a flagship product. You might see the campaign online first, then perhaps a physical advert as you step off the plane at Heathrow and pick up your bags. You see a shopfront on the high street, you walk inside, and the same visual language, that same feeling is present in the store design, on the product itself, even down to the swing tag and the wrapping paper. The experience is the product. So this principle of a totally unified, multi-channel presence is key to understanding what London Museum could be. It's about creating instantly recognizable narratives that permeate every single touch point. And we asked ourselves, how could we apply that level of strategic creative coherence to a complex cultural institution like ours? To answer this question, we needed to go right back to the building blocks of who we are and look at how we needed to reposition ourselves as an institution. Reaching new audiences meant the decision to rebrand, was driven by several key factors as we looked towards our new chapter. Firstly, we recognized the need to reach new audiences and bring in more visitors than ever before. And our existing brand was not ideally positioned to help us achieve these ambitious goals. Reaching new audiences meant understanding their expectations and perceptions of museums. We conducted audience research, extensive surveys and focus groups to gain insights into what would make the museum more relevant and appealing. We found that many potential visitors felt that the old brand was corporate, outdated, and simply didn't reflect the dynamism, and diversity of London today. This insight directly informed our decision to create an identity that just felt more inclusive and engaging. Functionally, the old logo had become unpopular with audiences and presented several technical challenges in its application. Its unusual form and its overly broad range of colorways was just fundamentally limiting, particularly for digital and mobile applications that just didn't exist in the same way 15 or so years ago when the previous identity was first developed. We needed a more effective and versatile visual identity. But crucially, a rebrand would signify a moment of change, allowing us to honor our origins whilst firmly looking forward to the future as London Museum. We aim to develop a visual identity and a tone of voice that clearly communicates our fundamental position as London's shared place. Our positioning highlights that we're in the middle of it all, of rush hour, of 10,000 years of history, and where all of London's stories cross and collide, offering a home for everyone, no matter their background or how long they're staying for. So, recognizing that need for a profound shift, we understood that this wasn't just about changing visuals and changing colors. It was about looking to redefine our essence, potentially even our name, to better reflect our history and future ambition. We embarked on a collaborative process of scoping and reflection. We appointed brand strategist, Something More Near, and creative agency Uncommon Creative Studio, who proposed a really innovative process of co-creation to kick things off. We engaged in workshops, co-creation sessions, and extensive consultations. This involved not just our internal teams, but also reaching out to external stakeholders, community members, and potential future audiences. We needed to ensure that the identity and our approach resonated broadly and felt as authentic as possible. We worked with one Londoner from each borough who'd made their mark on the capital, as well as engaging with thousands of London school children through our learning and engagement teams. We established interactive installations at our London Wall site, inviting visitors to share their impact on the city. We held numerous workshops with core creatives from a range of London boroughs, alongside members of our own museum team, to identify the key themes that emerged from these conversations and keep a track of them. Our co-creation process really was the cornerstone of the rebranding effort from the outset. We didn't just ask people for their opinions, we actively involved them in aiming to shape the museum's identity. In the workshops, we used creative exercises to elicit responses, such as asking participants to visualize the museum as a person, or create collages that represented their connection to London. These activities generated a huge array of qualitative data that really helped us uncover deep-seated values and aspirations. In total, this process involved over 500 participants over 19 landmark sessions. The insights were gathered and compiled and documented into what we called the Book of Boroughs. So, the Book of Boroughs in this wider, extensive consultation really went on to define the key elements of our brand framework. That is our mission, to enrich the understanding and appreciation of Londoners and all its people, past, present and future. Our positioning as London's shared place in the middle of it all, where all of London's stories cross and collide, and our behaviours, which fundamentally define how we act to deliver on our mission and positioning. And they are taking good care, contrasting and connecting, putting on a great show, keeping our feet on the street, and ensuring that the doors always stay open. Through these behaviours and these mission statements, one clear principle shone through. We were continually trying to position ourselves as an institution of breadth, an embodiment of the grit and glitter of the city. So, grit and glitter is a phrase that I say a lot, and they really are the defining inseparable forces of London Museum. Grit is in our DNA, glitter is our mode of expression. Our mission is to create a space where these opposing energies can thrive together and create something incredible. Whether we're exploring the impact of the Great Fire, celebrating Black History Month, or amplifying the voices of London's LGBTQ+ community, every touchpoint with London Museum should embody this powerful combination to inspire conversation and drive meaningful change. Who we are is as carefully constructed as possible to evoke the sense of boldness, braveness, and brightness, ensuring that people feel a sense of value in our existence as an institution. So, as you might know, a pivotal element of our new visual identity is the pigeon. The pigeon emerged from many different routes, but particularly early on in co-creation sessions with school children in particular. Big Ben and red buses, the pigeon, they were all identified as consistent icons of city life and of London. But some of these icons are inequitable. Not every Londoner passes through Westminster and sees Big Ben in the London Eye. It speaks to a tiny, tiny experience and isn't universal. But pigeons are everywhere. They are the city experience. Pigeons embody our dualities. They embody the grit and glitter of London. They're seen as pests, but fundamentally, they're a humble yet ever-present icon of city life, moving freely between moments of splendour and everyday reality, observing everything without judgment. Pigeons have been a part of London since its very beginnings, and are represented many, many times throughout our collection, with examples dating back to Roman times. But fundamentally, our pigeon is more than a visual. It's imbued with meaning. The pigeon community, like no one else, has eyes all over London, and that's what we aspire to be. The pigeon mirrors the museum's role as a chronicler of London's stories, both big and small, important, and seemingly pointless. So to create our pigeon, with Uncommon, we dug and cleaned clay from the River Thames underneath Hammersmith Bridge. We then partnered with a London-based sculptor in North London and moulded it into the pigeon as we know it. This was fired at a studio in Woolwich, and finally 3D scanned in Clerkenwell into a digital model that we now use today. It's a real pairing of physical and digital craftsmanship, grounded in the city's history and grounded in the city's people. I mean, we see it, I see it as an avant-garde ambassador for the museum. It's a canvas to exhibit the city. It reflects broad topics, events, and ideas through materials, texture, and character. So, aside from the pigeon is part of a larger logo and icon system. This system includes two extraordinary core typefaces, Museum Sans and London Hand. These typefaces represent that contrast between grit and glitter. Museum Sans originated from the utilitarian typography of the markets themselves and of the underground system. Uncommon developed the Museum Sans typeface from Castellon Sans, the first commercial sans serif font developed in London. Museum Sans serves as the foundation of our distinctive wordmark and embodies our institutional voice, carefully crafted and always deliberate. In contrast, our second primary typeface is London Hand. London Hand amplifies the voice of people. It's unconventional, it's unrefined, it exudes urgency, and it's a call to action. As a partner to Museum Sans, London Hand adds personality, playfulness, and cleverness into our communication, whether through words, phrases, or just hand-drawn flourishes. The splat is an asset that we can use to deploy humor and irreverence into our brand when appropriate. It's a glitter-coated summation of the grit of the city and can be unexpected when used in the correct context. Finally, the wordmark itself is a bold, visually tight element that's immediately identifiable and clear. So the brand book, along with all the associated assets and templates, were developed and produced, initially through Uncommon, then developed by my incredible internal design studio team to reflect the specific needs of the institution. Design workshops and rigorous audience testing were crucial in the early stages to refine the identity during its development. We worked with Uncommon to ensure that it resonated effectively. This included formal brand testing with DJS Research and liaison sessions with our internal teams over a program. We engaged in comprehensive access consultancy to consider inclusivity across all aspects of the brand and of the wayfinding. And we developed the identity rollout in line with the new museum's inclusive design guidelines that we've developed for every single project that we do at the new museum, and we're continually evolving. So the next step was taking the assets and the brand principles and rolling them out across the existing institution and all aspects of the new museum project. The internal exercise was a carefully planned and phased process. With my studio team and the brand steering group, we mapped out how we would engage with the institution. With my studio team, we conducted workshops with various museum team members to understand existing assets and outputs and strategize their transition to the new brand. This huge undertaking involved asset registers, gathering examples, systematically reshaping everything to the new brand guidelines and architecture. From the outset, I knew that the identity would need to flex on how teams implement it in practice. Our development team has completely different needs to our audience and learning teams, for example. We needed to ensure that the various assets could, for want of a better word, kind of pull in or out of the limelight, and we wanted to guide teams on how to do this in a bespoke way to deliver that in their practice. Having this consideration from the outset provided an adaptability that's given us the room to tailor our communications across different platforms and diverse audiences. I think a really great example of this would be two of our latest announcements, that of our incredible announcement with Bloomberg and another recent one with Morley's. These are two completely different announcements, both incredible, both incredibly exciting, and both represent very different sides of London. But both felt really at home with our identity and with our communications, and that's representative of the breadth of London that our identity and our brand is trying to reflect. So that was our internal rollout. But what was a potentially more complex challenge was bringing our external partners on the way. It was a major challenge I had coming into the project anyway, navigating the huge breadth of design teams across the project. And when I say hundreds of people, I mean hundreds of people. Some of them had been working on this project for well over a decade. It couldn't be as simple as me swanning in and saying, slap a giant pigeon at the entrance and call it a day. We needed nuance. So to better understand the application and integration of the various brand elements we developed and how they would manifest physically on site, we developed an approach that categorized our assets along the spectrum to more ephemeral to more ingrained. It's not a binary categorization, but it's a fluid scale. More ephemeral assets are those outputs that are more fleeting, more temporal, those that are subject to more flexibility. These include, your social media content, your marketing materials, both internal and out of home, your website, your digital channels. And then conversely, your more ingrained assets are those elements that are more physically permanent and unchangeable. They are the building names, the general market, the poultry market. They are the primary wayfinding and museum signage. And even to some extent, they're things such as our staff uniforms, which, we're not going to be changing those every month. So this categorization really provided us with a clear spectrum and an understanding in the way in which the identity can be embedded into different types of touch points, ensuring consistency and appropriate application of our visual identity. For example, the Museum Sans typeface and our wordmark would be appropriate to be chiseled into the brickwork of the general market. It's a part of the fabric of the building. Whereas the pigeon would appear in flight, on a tote bag or on a uniform or something kind of moving in and around the building. We needed to ensure that we gave enough kind of flexibility for those platforms. As a specific example with, say, wayfinding, this ingrained to ephemeral approach started to set a benchmark as to how we approach the design of physical elements themselves. With Cartilage Levine, our incredible wayfinding partners, the signage strategy follows that similar spectrum, with the physical buildings, their names ingrained into the fabric of the architecture, whilst the exhibition-specific signage, being inherently more ephemeral, is suspended from the architecture using sort of kind of changeable rails. The language of the signage itself is wholly ingrained into the history of the site, with materiality and detailing referencing the utilitarian steel textures and structures of the market hall. So, in this vein, as we prepared to launch the brand and the identity, I'd also started to think and consider that it wasn't just about how the identity is applied and how it's used. It was also about how the principles outlined in our brand architecture need to be embedded into everything we do from a design perspective. How does look and feel extend beyond the visual identity and beyond the brand itself? How is it ingrained into everything we do in the fabric of the museum? To answer this, we reflected on the fact that we are a social history museum, and we can't forget that. A museum of stories, a museum of people. Whilst we're really, really fortunate, incredibly fortunate to have some beautiful and significant objects in our collection, I found that some of the most interesting, in many, many ways, are the most mundane. It's the stories behind them that are incredible. Many of them are everyday objects, perhaps even what some might consider quite ordinary or throwaway. But for us, the question became, how do we use design? How do we use identity? How do we use all of these tools as a way of bringing these objects to life and telling their stories in the best way possible? This is where the design principles came from and evolved. I knew that setting out museum-wide design principles wouldn't be possible until I'd really become attuned to the museum and the project itself. And as the brand was due to launch, this became the right time to formalize these and start putting them into practice. So, design principles themselves fundamentally act as a benchmark or a toolkit that underpin everything we do and is embedded into everyone that we work with. This is through 4 key strands. Positioning London Museum as a platform to work with London's most exciting and diverse talent. We aim to continuously collaborate with artists and creatives from across the city and beyond. Continually living up to the world-class restoration and quality of our buildings and spaces. Anything we produce must reflect the high standards of the incredible physical environment that Asif Khan, Stanton Williams, and Julian Harrop have developed for us. I mean, I always think it's really, really cheesy to say, but we are treating the museum buildings as if they are objects in the collection. And that's something that we want to make sure is resonant through everything that we do. We want to use creativity to bring our collection to life, to tell the people's stories behind our objects. Any design output that we deliver should be innovative, it should be engaging, it should focus on the human stories within our collection, moving beyond traditional displays, and consistently looking to methods and approaches from outside the typical museum and culture remit. We needed to broaden our horizons and look to competitors to benchmark against outside of what we do day to day, and make sure that we look to something that is really truly pioneering. And finally, and most importantly, that we champion clarity, cohesion and rigour to ensure we're London's most consistent and accessible museum. We are committed to ensuring that all outputs are easy to understand and accessible to everyone, adhering to our inclusive design guidelines that we've developed over the lifespan of the project and are continually evolving. So these are quite straightforward and clear principles, but getting them down on paper, getting them into every brief, getting them into every tender, getting them into every onboarding that we do out into the world will, over time, seep into and be central to every exhibition, every project, and every event that we do. I want to illustrate this with an example. Our newest exhibition that opened recently, Secrets of the Thames, has just opened at London Museum Docklands, and it was a really, really incredible process. Spearheaded by our brilliant curator, Kate Sumnall, working alongside Sam Jacobs' studio, who were the lead designers on the project. What we aimed for was an approach, not a rigid template or a dogmatic series of rules, but a clear direction of working informed by these principles that builds on the idea of artists and creatives contributing to the storytelling around the objects on display. This is obviously exemplified, to those that have seen it, spoiler alert, by the incredible finale of the exhibition, the Luke, Jerram Moon, but also across many elements within the exhibition, including Finders Keepers, Finding Alessio, one of 3 beautiful sculptures by artist Billy Bond on display in the exhibition. But outside of the exhibition itself, we work with illustrator Dominic Trevette. He's the talent behind much of our illustrative work. He's created an incredible illustrative range for Secrets of the Thames that we're selling in the shop. Importantly, this same illustrator has been fundamental and instrumental in developing the flourishes and the handwritten font that we use within our identity. These flourishes that are a key aspect of our visual language help us to express different activities, different events, different times of year, different things we're doing at the museum. Secrets truly encapsulates what we're trying to achieve in terms of embedding a broad range of artists, creatives and designers into storytelling and delivering projects in a cohesive manner. Every touch point through the exhibition, in the marketing and beyond, has been developed as a team, pulling in one direction. And for those that have seen it, I hope you agree that it definitely shows. Another project that embodies these principles, particularly that third pillar of looking to other industries and other approaches, are the window displays to our new museum. Across the facade of the new museum general market building, we have fabulous views into the general market ground floor exhibition space that we're developing with Asif Khan, in addition to several enclosed windows that act as vitrines. For these windows, we've worked with a vibrant London design studio, Motive Productions, who fundamentally specialise in visual merchandising, who create wonderful window displays for global fashion brands in spaces such as Harrods and Selfridges. This project was about big impact and visual celebration, rather than detailed interpretation or significant dwell times. Rather than treating these as traditional museum spaces or opportunities, we've looked to other industries, this time retail, as a benchmark for our work. It's looking to the best and most creative ways to tell our stories that may not naturally sit within our own wheelhouse. And the fact that both of these projects are utilising creativity and collaborations from a similar position means, whilst the outputs are going to be very, very different, they will both inherently read as London Museum projects. And as a caveat, I also want to be really clear too that the museum has a great history of collaborating with incredible artists and creatives over the years. But this was always slightly piecemeal and it was never enshrined centrally. So there was this struggle to articulate and click together the different creative strands. That's what I see these principles doing for us in the long term. So, as you can see, we've set out the overarching strands of brand architecture and design principles, both of which feed three more on-the-ground strands: the visual identity, which I've covered, our tone of voice, and our art direction. On the latter, crucially, every time we're onboarding a new design team, a new photographer, a new illustrator, in line with our design principles, we're introducing them to our art direction. You can have the best principles and the best visual identity in the world, but without a cohesive vision of how that is delivered from an art direction perspective, it just won't be effective. Our art direction, again, was a collaborative process that we spearheaded internally as a studio team. Got some snapshots from the process here. We set up a series of extensive workshop sessions where we consulted with teams across the museum who engage with and use imagery in their daily practice. This included everybody from our curatorial teams to our digital teams, our photographers, our marketers, our communications team. We asked attendees to bring together a broad range of images and we critiqued them in a group kind of crit session, categorized into groupings such as representation of objects, representations of imagery, representations of people, places, spaces. We looked at broad precedents, both from other institutions and also again across other sectors. It was a no wrong answer approach that brought together a whole load of different and a huge range of ideas. Through this process, we really started to build a picture of both what we wanted to achieve and aspire to, as well as identify what we didn't want to be. The principles were brought together into what I call the London Museum Lookbook. And we focused on one overarching and four supporting pillars. The core principle: we are our people, our collection, and our city. Our images tell the story of our collection, people's stories behind our objects, and London itself. Every image that we commission, create, and use must focus on one or more of these aspects. And if it doesn't, we have to ask ourselves why we're using it. Our images are as broad and as diverse as the city, and should tell stories from a wide range and representative set of perspectives. We are hero images. Each and every image should stand on its own visually. A single image should carry 1,000,000 words. All images should have a clear, direct, and impactful point of view and visual style. Bland and apologetic imagery is not welcome. We are honest. We never over-manipulate. Images should be naturally illuminated and coloured, without oversaturation or unnecessary modification or filtering. We capture candid moments. We don't set up, we don't over-choreograph, we don't over-pose. Images want to feel in the moment and spontaneous. And our images look people in the eye and allow visitors to feel a part of that action. We should welcome everybody into the story. We're unexpected. Our imagery should break the mold and feel impactful, capturing movement, energy, emotion, chaos, mess. We do not want to look like any other museum. We should be fun, we should be irreverent, we should be playful. We shouldn't always be visually serious because we're an institution. We should make room to surprise people. And our images should celebrate the diversity of the museum. We should never be repetitive, we should never be homogenous. And finally, and I feel, again, most importantly, is that we tell stories. Our images should tell clear stories. Each should have a defined subject and focus and a considered composition. The viewer should immediately get the story. We should never be over-abstracted. We should never be obtuse. We should never be over-conceptual if it doesn't support the story. Our stories are real. Our stories are tactile. And we shouldn't shy away from difficult stories or imagery. Our images should be used to powerfully communicate and represent broad ideas. Every image should start a conversation. And as a bit of a kind of a side anecdote, I think with telling stories through imagery, before I went into design, I used to be a dancer. I studied for many years at the Royal Ballet School. And that idea of telling stories without using words, through poise, through position, through composition, is such a profound skill to communicate effectively. Again, these are very, very broad principles, but they set out a stall that allow for flexibility and breadth, whilst constantly ensuring consistency through quality. So these were supplemented by very clear this, not that style aspiration examples. And this is a really glib one, but I really wanted us to avoid the children pointing aimlessly into a showcase, staring into a future that doesn't exist at some object in the distance. Similarly, though, it's that assurance that we're telling the stories of the objects and not the museum itself. We don't want to be self-indulgent, and that should be the priority. Objects held, for example, by gloved hands in a lab-style environment is really only telling the story of the processes of the museum. It doesn't reveal anything about the object itself. A really brilliant example for this is going back to the marketing creative Secrets of the Thames. That campaign, the first to be developed fully in-house for a major exhibition, the images that were captured by a photographer, John Chase, embedded the objects into the foreshore itself, both to tell the story of the object, its discovery, and to also create what we called internally visual ASMR, to really recreate the texture of the mud. We wanted you to see these in the tube or wherever, and you immediately feel the sand on your fingertips. You feel the water of the river, and it sets that tone of the exhibition before you even step into the museum. Similarly, outside of pure imagery, we've also capitalized on the pigeon as embodying these art direction principles, pushing the use of the pigeon as a canvas for celebrating moments in the calendar, communities in the city, and of the collection itself. This is manifested in many, many ways so far, and is something that we're focusing on as a key to building our visual language further. So far this year, we've had an Easter egg pigeon that's half unwrapped, a Lunar New Year pigeon, a Diwali pigeon, and most recently, a London Marathon pigeon, grace our website and communications. This list will continue to grow and involve collaborations with artists, creatives, and wider commissions. The pigeon is such a useful canvas for us and allows us to express core elements of our communications with surface and texture rather than pure photography and imagery. But obviously, delivering in the art direction is always easier said than done, and these principles are aspirational. They'll evolve over time, and we're constantly benchmarking ourselves to ensure that our images speak about us in the most incredible way possible. We found that particularly with photography, living these art directions whilst engaging with our collection is a different ask to commissioned photography of people. And as we build a strategy to New Museum, evolving our art direction to engage with our collection is a really key train of thought for me. So, as you can see, across developing these 4 pillars over the past 3 years, we've aimed to bring design to the forefront of the museum's new direction. Great design and great design strategy often go unnoticed because its purpose is there to facilitate. I genuinely hope that our approach will not only create a seamless attraction for London, but provide a platform for London's creators to build upon. Our commitment to working with London's creatives is not just about enriching the museum's experience itself, it's about investing in the city's the city's cultural ecosystem. By providing platforms for artists, designers, and storytellers, we want to help nurture talent, foster innovation, and ensure that London retains its status as a global creative powerhouse. For example, across our new museum's pastime galleries, which are our permanent collection galleries, we've appointed and worked with an extensive number and a broad range of individual artists and creatives to deliver the storytelling, the films, the animations across the galleries. Through these appointments, we've consciously focused on engaging younger illustrators who are early in their careers, right through to established creatives who are producing world-class work. Their unifying factor is solely a clear and confident practice and an affinity to storytelling. Outside of the project itself, we're actively engaging in with exciting and emerging talent. For example, with our London Museum Studios project, which is opening at the end of this month, led by our brilliant engagement team, we've developed a space within Smithfield Central Market that serves as a preview to the ethos in the museum and as a base for community engagement until 2026. We've partnered with an emerging and dynamic design practice called Poor Collective, who are currently developing the space. They have experience in co-creation and engagement work, and we're a brilliant choice because they aligned with and are intertwined with that specific project's wider ambitions. Once again, we're ensuring that design is brought to the forefront of delivering our work. The engagement with creators who are newer to the industry is something that I feel is key to evolving all of the approaches stated here. Unlike some institutions, or what this could have been, I've never seen this project as a temple to a single author. And through engaging with designers at all stages of their career, it's incredibly important. I mean, outside of my day job, I teach at the Architectural Association, and in the past year alone, I've worked with the Royal College of Art, participated in work experience programs within the city, engaged on projects with the Bartlett School of Planning at UCL, but most recently, we've been working extensively with Central St Martin's Knowledge Exchange Programme and their School of Communications. Building these relationships and looking at them as opportunities for discussion, for conversation, and as potential routes for collaboration, an opportunity is key to the future of this strategy. So, to conclude, this ambitious journey to create London Museum represents far more than a physical undertaking. It's a profound investment in the enduring spirit of our city. It's a clear recognition that London's unparalleled strength lies not solely in its remarkable history, but also, and perhaps more crucially, in its vibrant and perpetually evolving creative energy. By thoughtfully and seamlessly integrating exceptional design principles throughout every facet of the museum experience, and by actively empowering a diverse and dynamic community of London's creatives, we are building a museum that authentically embodies the very essence of this as a global hub for innovation and culture. This will be a place where every visitor, regardless of their background, can forge a deep and meaningful connection with the powerful and multifaceted story of London. A story that stretches from its ancient origins to its dynamic present and its limitless future. Thank you.
I think you agree that's been an amazing masterclass from Josh. We've probably got time just for one really good question. Has someone got one question they'd like to ask? No? You've told us everything, Josh. So I hope you leave here, look at the pigeons with a slightly different lens as you walk through London Street, and please give Josh a massive thank you. That was a brilliant